So Nicole,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
Oh, so I was thinking, first of all, thank you for doing this, for
You're
having
welcome.
coffee with Cathy, although we don't have coffee.
No, but that's okay.
That's okay. So, Nicole, why don't you talk a little bit and let everybody know what you do here?
Sure. Well, my official title is administrative assistant, and what that entailed, well, I say entailed because things have obviously shifted.
Yes.
But assisting you, of course, with anything you might need, calendar, emails, etc., checking the mail, the voicemails, booking the rentals, being there to support as a wedding coordinator for the weddings that we have. And let's see, what else do I do? I feel like there's always something else coming up. We're all trying to juggle so much within this church, so it feels like it's always shifting. But the reason I came here, the reason I knew about the position was because of working with Liz at Park Avenue Youth Theater.
Yes.
And we would coming to this space several times a week. And I actually went to Liz and said, I just really like the energy of this building. I really look forward to coming here. And any other opportunities that come up, I'd like to be a part of them, thinking it would be with the theater. Yeah. And then, of course, she called me in November 2 years ago.
Wow.
At this point,
wow.
And said they were looking for someone to temporarily fill the position of office assistant. So could I come in? And
2 years later. That's sort of how it works around here, right?
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate working with you. I appreciate your sense of humor. And I honestly appreciate also how dependable you are. Because I know when I ask you to do something, it comes off my plate. And even when I've forgotten, you don't. And so I just want to name aloud that.
Thank you.
How much it helps me to keep going and to do what I do. And so now you're also helping us on Sunday morning.
Yes.
So you're pointing at me and telling me when to go and when to speak and which camera to look into.
I'm trying to get you to listen to me, but yeah, that's been a whole, as a theater person who didn't really step into film at all, except for one class in college, learning the whole other side of things in terms of the camera has been really interesting and challenging, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And of course, I haven't been to so many Sundays when they were in the church. I think I went to one. and so it's and so being a part of that every week has been a really great learning experience.
Yeah, I think I've heard you say a few amens. I know you're holding back, but I've heard you over there grunting a few times. So that's been great. That's been great. So because, of course, the people that are watching, they don't get to see all of the wires and the cameras and everything. So it's a big deal on Sunday morning. And before you started helping us out with that, Derek and Isaiah, God bless them, were doing what they do, then running over and doing that. And it's such a relief to have someone so dependable helping us out on Sunday morning and keeping us straight. So that gives me joy. And we're going to talk about joy today.
Yay.
'Tis the season, right? So what are you thinking about joy? How is it different this year?
I feel like it's different because I find joy, it sounds so cliche. I'm finding joy in the simpler things. Being able to breathe.
Yes.
My health, the health of my family and friends. Having a job. Having insurance, which is not something I've had most of my life until about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Those things bring me joy. Being at home and getting to spend every 10 minutes going over and cuddling with my cats in between emails, that's been joyful. I I think because we've spent so much time at home, I've been able to watch the seasons change in a way that I never have before. In April and May was in my daily hour walks through the park, watching the trees start to bud and the buds start to blossom and the blossoms turn to leaves and then as of course summer came and as fall came, I've been able to watch nature in a way that I've never paid attention to before and appreciate that. Yeah.
You certainly, I don't think that I saw you when your cat was sick a week or so ago. But other than that, you almost always have a joyful demeanor. And has it always been that way, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wrote about a couple of years ago for one of the
Advent
Reflections that I had a boss when I was working in the mall in high school who said to me, we were just talking about you. You're always smiling. It's really weird. Thank you. And she goes, why are you always so happy? I was like, I don't know. I as long as I can remember, like anyone, I go through.
Sure.
I go through emotions, but it's really easy. I can easily access joy all the time for the most part.
That's great. That's a huge gift.
Yeah.
A huge blessing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So where does that come from, do you think? Or, is it inherited? Were your parents like that? Or just, do you meditate or listening to all those great sermons? Or
Yes, it's the sermons from Pastor Cathy. I think that's interesting. It's a really interesting question. From what my family says, I've always been a really cheerful child. I think part of it is growing up in a family that constantly gave me joy and that was so loving, and I was the youngest by a lot. Like my closest sister to me is 11 years older than me.
Wow.
12, I should know this. So I had 3 older siblings that doted on me, and my parents and their friends and our family, and so I was always surrounded by a lot of love, and I feel like that had to have been a big part of it too. I was just reading recently something that was saying for people who have been able to have the privilege of growing up in a settled, happy household, you were able to grow and develop at your own pace, as opposed to folks who may have just had to survive and had to struggle through their traumas. They don't have that same, they didn't come from that same place, so they weren't able to just blossom like I was with my family.
See, I think that's a very important point. And that's why, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about children, right? Because I also, had loving parents, and, there was always something going on, but never a moment where you didn't feel loved and valued. And I think if we can help children learn that early on, like the school and the Sunday school and the after-school theater programs and all of that, to affirm with the parents or the grandparents or whoever those nurturers are, that sense of belonging and love, then it just travels with children all throughout the rest of their life.
Yes.
And if you don't have it, it's not impossible to get it later on, but it is a challenge, right? So the work that you guys do with the theater program is so important as well. And I know our numbers are down a little bit right now, but let's talk a little bit about that program when before the pandemic happened, and your hopes for when we're able to get those kids back here again.
Sure. Well, the program was, of course, founded by Liz, that I met through, we went through the same master's program, applied theater, a master's in applied theater. We weren't in the same cohort, but Liz was directing a show that I was apprenticing on. That's how I met her. And we clicked, And so she invited me to come back to direct for a show, and then the next show, and then I just kept coming back. Before the pandemic, we were doing 3 classes a week, one in collaboration with the day school, so with 4 and 5 and 6 years of age. And then we have another group that's middle and high school age, and then a group that's in between that's 7 to 11. So really working with students from 4 to 18, which is really exciting because it's always a challenge, and each age group is so different, and I learn so much from them. So the goal is obviously we're focused on theater but performing, it's not like we have a theater where it's a vehicle to stardom, and we're trying to build professional actors. Although I think that the quality of the work we do is great. Not to toot my own horn.
Okay.
Okay, Nicole. But I think theater teaches a lot of really incredible life skills like collaboration. But it does inspire confidence in terms of being able to get up and articulate yourself and in front of people your own age, or when there's an audience in front of your whole family. And also we really want to value what every student brings to the table, as opposed to saying to be an actor, you have to look like this, you have to be like this. We always try to say we try to learn, we play games to learn who's in the group and what are they interested in and what are their strengths. What do they want to talk about, and how do they want to present that to the world? So we do play games, and we give them an opportunity almost every session to create a piece of theater. And then we take everything that we've learned about them throughout the semester, and we put it in like a holding theme. So for example, we've done the Twilight Zone as a holding theme, or war, or Greek mythology. And then when we offer up this frame, then we ask them to devise within it, and then we see what kind of stories they create. And then we keep editing it down until we get something that we can share at the end of the semester to whoever they want to share it with. So we were doing a live performance at the end of every semester. We didn't skip a beat when everything shut down in March. We went right to virtual, right to Zoom, the wonderful world of Zoom that we've been learning about. And the beautiful thing about that is the young people that are on board with us, they know a lot about computers, so they could teach us, because me and Liz are like, we don't know what any of this means. We've been learning about editing, and they've been really excited to say, I know, I can help you edit. I know how to do that. Good. Or Nicole, that's not gonna working. This is what you should do instead. But it's really, we try to set up the program so that their voices are the most important part of the program, and hoping that we can really validate the voice of everybody. And what's really exciting about this work is being able to see, no matter what the age is, see how young people grow. And offering them a space that's outside of school where they can come and be. And I know Liz and I always talk about, we had a student who in PAYT was always very much a leader, was always outspoken, was always the first one to volunteer for anything. And their mom told us that they are the complete opposite in school. They never speak up. They don't have a lot of friends. They have a hard time saying yes to things. And it was really incredible to know that we provided that space for them.
And how rare is that in our culture today, to provide such a safe space for people to be who they are and on their own terms, and not this sort of mad rush to be something else or to conform to an outcome.
Yes.
That whatever the outcome is the outcome that it should have been, right?
Yes.
Because that's really how we grow, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I know I've been to some of the performances at the end of the term, and the parents, like, you may not think of it as a Broadway production, but the parents seem to think that their child has just performed on Broadway. And it's funny to see them with the flower bouquets and the clapping and, the grandparents. It's really wonderful.
Yes.
And I've seen so many kids are repeaters, right? Like, there have been kids that are there since the first class.
Yeah. What's interesting is one of our groups, the older group, almost everybody in that group has been with us for a while. One of the young people was in I think the first year that Liz started the program 7 years ago. Wow. And so that's been great to have them commit to it and keep coming back, and then also take on new roles, take on apprenticeships with the younger students, or ask if they can be assistant directors. That's been really exciting too.
Yeah. What else brings you joy? I know your cat. Is it one cat or
2 cats?
2 cats. So do you want to talk about them a little bit?
Sure, always. Yes. Huge cat person. Well, I love animals, but I just connect with cats. They bring me and my husband a lot of joy. They're very different. One of them is very much like a standoffish. We call her the queen, and that's Binks. And the other one, Medley, is the most cuddly cat I've ever encountered in my life. I call her the creative cuddle consultant because she's always coming up with new ways to cuddle. Very sweet, and so they bring us a lot of joy, and it's really, it's like you have this different species in your home that they rule your life. But they also bring us a lot of joy.
Yeah.
So they do.
Yeah.
And I know I spoke with you. One of the older cat was sick for a while, and we were able to figure out what was wrong with her, and she's been getting better. She wasn't eating for a while. She's been gaining weight. She's been, screaming at us just like she used to, running out of the bed, from underneath the bed as soon as she hears the can pop open in the morning. And I was saying I learned a lot from her about patience. My husband, Rob, kept saying, you want her to get better on your timetable. You have to, it's her timetable.
Yes.
So you have to be patient.
Yes.
So I was like, here, have more food. Here, I'm gonna put some freeze-dried salmon, eat,
Get well now.
Yes, exactly. And so to just be like, she's a cat, she's an animal, she's going to get there, but she's gonna do it on her own terms, and so I have to back off.
Imagine that.
Yes.
And I know you have at least one other joy, the dancing.
Yes.
Your dance group that you're part of.
Yes. A part of a dance group that we dance in the Mermaid Parade and the Pride Parade and the Halloween Parade. I've been doing it for almost 10 years.
Wow.
And what I love about it is that it's a group of women. In some years there's 40 women, in some years there's less. But you don't have to audition or be a dancer to be a part of the group. They're really focused on community. And so that's been really incredible experience. And this year, even though we obviously weren't able to be in the parades, they have kept the community going strong. They've had like virtual dance times, and also supporting different causes and just getting together for beach days, or meeting outside in the tennis court where we used to rehearse for birthday parties. And so being able to keep that community alive, and it's people that I never would have met ordinarily. Wow. It's like doctors and lawyers, not that I don't know any doctors and lawyers, but I don't. And other people who are in theater, or people who are, it's like folks from all over. So it's really great to be able to grow, to build more relationships through dance.
It's great.
And dancing is also just so fun.
Isn't
and
it
freeing.
fun?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Ooh.
We'll get you dancing with us one of these days.
You know, I might. And I'm good for a challenge. Keep asking me, keep asking me. So we're in this season, this Advent season, and in general, what would you say, how important is it for people to find joy just on a regular basis, especially when, you know, there's so much going on in our world right now. We're so fraught with anxiety and worry and the unknown. What would you say, how important is it for people to really pursue joy?
I mean, it's the most important because it gives you that motivation, the reason to keep going. And it's been challenging for sure, these roller coasters. And it feels like every day we wake up and something else has happened. And so there's that there was for a while where I was waking up and checking the news as soon as I rolled over from bed. And I've had to develop some practices to distance myself from that and allow myself to breathe and come to a place where I can absorb that information. And it's interesting too, because there are times when I feel like I can feel guilty for feeling joy when there's so much pain and tragedy. And I think that's real. And I think that helps. I mean, that's where empathy comes in, right? And wanting to be able to find ways to bring joy to folks who might need it the most.
And I would say, you know, as a way of you know, of being grateful that you do have life, you do have health, right? You're not going to waste this day pining away for something when somebody else would be glad to have just your day with whatever you're, I mean, not that you're, you know, our own stuff is our stuff, right? But sometimes in honor of, or in appreciation of the fact that I have this day and it doesn't have to be this way, right? We just want to just kind of find the joy in it. That's why I love our staff meetings, how we always start with the joy. Yes, we do.
And there are some days where everybody's like, I got it. And then I think about days in April and May where we say, okay, who's going to start? And everyone's like,
but true to form, isn't this true? Like almost always Liz starts, right? And then you'll kick in somewhere early
If I don't, you'll say Nicole.
But we know Liz always has a joy.
Liz always starts.
And then who are always the last three?
Well, let's see. Well, Isaiah's always the very last one. Derek's second to last. And then usually what? It's Paul.
The guys.
Oh, the guys. Yeah.
Like clockwork every week, I swear. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Every week.
Every week. So, oh my goodness. So if you had to wish the world something that you are hoping for, what would you say as we?
I hope that we find ways to take care of everyone in our communities. And that we are welcoming folks who may not look like us or talk like us or love like us or worship like us or believe like us, and validating that everyone has a place and deserves to be taken care of. And a lot of the ways of taking care of people are still, we haven't gotten it right.
Right. And how do you think we get it right?
I think we have to listen to other people and believe them. I know we have to be willing to face those parts of ourselves that we don't want to confront or we don't want to believe exist, that we have our own work to do. And I think that finding joy, I think, and I've said this to you before, joy and love are radical. Our society is not set up to celebrate those unless they are benefiting certain people. And so how do you take care of someone, even, right? How do you share joy and not hoard it? And how do we start looking at the world and saying, like, I want to give you this, it doesn't mean it's being taken from me. Does that make sense?
There's enough, right?
Yeah.
There's enough for all of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we have to find new ways of working together.
New ways.
New ways.
Yes. Yes.
And new ways of telling each other stories and
But I think also just telling our stories. I think we're so reluctant, right? Like there's something like we don't want people to know. And don't get me wrong, like there's certain, your business is your business, right? But how often are we around people and we know nothing?
yeah.
We know nothing. And then as Christians, we're like, love your neighbor, right? But how can you love somebody that you don't know? So we get comfortable with this sort of pseudo, right, politeness, right, on the surface. But maybe part of it is letting people in a little bit, right, and hearing our stories, and then, like you say, listening to someone else's story, right, and then we get to know each other. We get to know, one of the reasons why I started with the joys at staff meetings is because then you learn what people like. You learn that, I think Isaiah was the first person that I heard say he likes rainy days. And I was like, whoa, because for me, I hate rainy days. But then hearing somebody say that gives you such a window into who this person is, right? And that's good, and it's okay, and it's like so cool, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, we try really hard to make that not a work thing. Every now and then our joy is something related to work, but by just saying that, it just helps you to know who's there. Who am I talking to? Who am I working beside, right? And then, taking that risk to know and to be known, I think starts to make the world better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives us a bit of agency. Yeah. It's risky. we take our toe and stick it in the water, but so what, right? It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the good work is really messy.
Yeah. Oh.
You know about that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, and that's really scary sometimes
Yeah.
because you don't want to have to get in that mud.
Yeah, but that's certainly, until we get in the mud, we don't do the good work, right? Until we're willing to get a little dirty. Yeah.
What is your joy for the world? Or for Park Avenue Methodist Church?
Oh gosh, well, one, I am very happy with our church right now. I am very happy with the ways we have rallied together over these 8 or 9 months and how we have stuck together, how we have tended to one another. And certainly the staff is a huge, huge part of that. I'm hopeful for that day when we will all be back together in this place, right? Like, I think we've learned many things about each other in a pandemic, and certainly part of what we've learned is that the church is the people, not the building. But I can't wait till we're all here together. It's just gonna be something else, right? It's kind of like when you've been pent up for so long. We've taken for granted what it means to just look on someone's face. Like even now when we're able to get together physically, it's different, right?
Yeah.
And some people I haven't even seen on Zoom, right? We've emailed or texted or whatever. So I'm looking forward, and that's giving me a lot of it's giving me a lot of hopefulness right now, and anticipation. Certainly, you know, I'm always worried about the money, how we're going to survive financially. You know, like almost every other industry, every business, every church. So it's not just us alone. But we're going to be fine, right? I'm hopeful about that. We're going to find our way. It's not going to be easy, but you know, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And I think what hard times gives you is something about yourself, whether it's individually or as a group, that you could not have known. So you think you know, right? You know, but until you go through and come out on the other side, you don't really know. And that can be a painful lesson, but a good lesson to catapult you then from now on, you see? From now on, because we went through that and we survived.
Yes.
And I've seen people emerge. Like I've seen leadership emerge. I've seen our own creativity, right? Like Coffee with Cathy, right? like the virtual worship. Like we've done so many things on a dime.
Yeah.
Who knew, right? And those are good lessons to learn. You learn who sticks with you, you see, and who doesn't. And it's not a criticism,
Right.
but it's good to know,
Yeah.
right? You know, you don't, there's no judgment, but just some clarity about things. So I'm hopeful, I'm grateful, and I'm anticipating getting through this, getting on the other side. The pews are going to be filled. The school is going to be filled. We're going to go into another iteration of ourselves, right? Our eyes will have been opened, yeah, in a way that they just couldn't have been because our sight was too low.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we can dream different kinds of dreams. And I think that's the meaning of Advent, right? At the end of the day, is being open to the mystery and wonder of the obscure. You know, I was doing some meditation this morning and just reminded myself, it wasn't like I didn't know it, but Jesus was born into chaos. It was a mess, you know? And so the whole story of God coming when there is social and political unrest, to poor parents, to people that wanted to kill him. You know, his parents were refugees. There was division everywhere. So similar. And maybe in other years, you know, you read that story. I mean, I've been reading that story all these years. But maybe this year it is read and heard differently because we can relate, right? And maybe we might see God differently. That's my hope, is that all of this will not have been for naught, right? All of this COVID and people dying and, you know, the protests and the election and all of this, that we don't get on the other side and we're the same. You know, I was talking to Molly earlier and I was like, I'm not going to be the same. I am not the same, right? That would be the great tragedy.
Yes.
But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah, I say all the time, I don't think people are waiting for things to go back to normal. They won't, nor should they.
No.
Because normal was only working for a handful of people.
That is correct. That is correct.
I was watching a documentary a couple months ago, and one of the folks in it was talking about a specific time period in their life, and they were saying it was such a hard year, it was such a hard time, it was so dark. And I was watching that and thinking, my first thought was, oh, I hope I don't ever have to go through a time like that. And then I stopped and I said, I'm going through it right now. We're in it. Of course we're going through that dark time, but it's not, which is the strange and the sweet thing about it. It's not all just dark and depressing all the time. There are those moments where your community can lift you up, and where you can find that gratitude in places that you would never have thought of before.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's the point, is that, you know, God appears in unexpected places, and that's what faith is about. And how can we trust that, right? When we cannot see our way, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, we don't know what we're going to be able to do or not do. We don't know who's going to get sick. We don't know, right? And so how do we keep going? How do we find those nuggets of joy? How do we look for them? How do we celebrate them when there's so much uncertainty, you know?
I'm curious, how does, I'm just gonna ask it. How does God appear to you?
You're gonna ask me that while we're taking, seriously. Well, you know, here's what I will say. When I'm in prayer and reflection, I feel this presence. Lately, I've been crying a lot. Yeah. But those are not always sad tears, right? Like I find myself sometimes in worship, and maybe I'm praying, and then somebody will text me, "Are you okay?" You know. But prayers, for me, is a way I experience God. And sometimes I get full of that presence, right? And it's overwhelming. It's like my body cannot contain it. And so the tears are a way of letting it out, right? But I also experience God in people, right? And you guys, you know, in things I wasn't expecting, where I think to myself, surely God moved on that person's heart or mind or whatever. You know, when I feel loved, yeah. When I can love, yeah. When I can be gracious and generous, right? All of those things that make my life better, because I think then the process is working. I think love works. It is real. It is different than hate. It produces a different feeling in me. It is life-giving, right? I can get motivated, I can get around that, but also other people can too, right? And so I experience God in our staff, you know, all the time, but it's true, right? And one of the things I've been grateful for, and you guys have got to keep this going, is like despite the tension, we don't kill each other.
Yeah.
We don't take it out on each other, right? It's not like, now I don't know what you guys say about me behind my back, but but I don't feel that like with each other, and that makes coming to work or our engagement with one another good. Yeah, because, and I don't take it for granted, because I've worked in places where people love their work, but they hate, or it's hard to be with the people that you work with, and that can be difficult. Also with the church, like they're good people here, right? And other people. I think for some people, just in general, there is a different kindness. People are wanting to be. Well, whether you call that God, as I do, Jehovah, or Buddha, right, or whatever you want to call that entity, I think it's here and it's available. And I believe what I believe, but I'm okay with others believing what they believe, because the basic principles of love and kindness and goodness, I think, are universal. And I think that's the gift of our shared humanity. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It was making me think of there was, and I can't remember what Zoom call this was, or what organization, or what person, but they were talking about how we can celebrate, how we should be celebrating each other, and in this political climate where there's so much anger and rage, and a lot of it is justified. They were talking about the uprisings, the protests that have been happening, and they were saying that rage can be a very great motivating factor, but you cannot build a foundation on rage. And that you have to find a way to transform that energy. And that's something they when I've been learning about de-escalation and things like that, they were saying it's not interrupting, it's not stopping, it's transforming the energy into something that is joyful and that is celebratory.
And hopeful.
And hopeful.
Yeah. Where there's a possibility for a healthy outcome.
Yeah.
It's not to diminish or to dismiss the pain or the anger, right? Because that's real and it probably came from somewhere.
Right.
But then how do we use it as a platform for something else, for healing even?
How do we learn to live together?
Yeah.
It's got to be through joy. It can't just be
No,
through
can't.
anger and grief, because that's not sustainable.
No.
That's another word I keep hearing that I tie to joy a lot. Sustainability. We're moving things forward, we're progressing things, so how do we keep it sustainable?
Well, one of the things that I became very conscious of this summer, especially with the Black Lives Matter protests and the police brutality, was often the level of pain and anger the level of anger and hostility has to do with the level of pain. And often it's pain that has never been dealt with. So if I'm trying to make a point with you and you're listening, then we can probably be okay. But if I'm constantly trying to make that point and you haven't heard, and I make it again and you don't hear, and again, then probably I'm going to resort to shouting, right? I'm going to have to step it up a notch or two.
Yeah.
So often when we see this deep level of pain, it's a sign that people haven't felt heard. It's like a child, a 3-year-old does that, right? You know, often you start them out, and if you listen, most often but if you don't, I mean, they don't have those tantrums for nothing.
Right.
And they're kicking and screaming and yelling and uncontrollable because nobody has seen.
Yes.
Nobody has heard. And that's very painful. So I think the beginning is to be able to acknowledge, you know, that what the person is screaming about is real, is legitimate, it came from somewhere, and that it's probably this way because it's been ignored, right? But if you're willing to listen, right, and the other person is willing to share and is safe to share and is brave enough to share, like all of these words, right? Creating that environment where good health and growth can come from it, then we can maybe move along. But it's hard. It's hard. And you can't take hundreds of years of being unheard and think it's going to change overnight. It is not. Yeah, it is not.
I keep hearing the phrase unlearning.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think about that a lot. All the things that I need to unlearn in order to start learning.
Yeah. And you can't start in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
You have to understand the beginning and how far that person or those persons have traveled to get to this moment where you are, right? There's a reason. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we all have to unlearn, but it can't be one-sided. Yeah. And here we have this great opportunity now. So much has been uncovered. And we say, do we want to be brave soldiers? And how brave do we want to be? And I think we should never underestimate our own agency. You know, I hear people saying, well, the world ought to be better, you know, or Christians ought to be better, or the church ought to be better. And I say, but you're part of it.
Yes.
You're part of the world. You're part of the church. You have agency. Let's start with you.
Right.
And me, right? And with you, and this one, and that one. And if enough of us are willing to start and try and work hard, gradually over time, even if we don't see the full manifestation in our lifetime, and we won't,
Yeah.
but that's how things change.
Taking back that power.
Yes, yes. And recognizing that we all have some. We have a lot. Everybody has a lot. God has gifted us with a certain amount of power.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and I think for some of us, it's about giving up some of that power so
Yes.
other people can have some.
That's right. That's right. And then how do you use your power? How do you use your power to make that happen? And how do I use my power? Right? And instead of pointing outward all the time, we start pointing inward. And it's every day. It's with people that we love and our families and people that are not going to want to hear it.
Yeah.
Some of them look like us, right? It's not always those people over there, right? And how to say it in a way that can be heard. Because that's always huge too,
Yes.
you know, and not being so righteous that we shut the conversation down. But it's good. It's good. It's good. So thank you. Thank
you,
you.
Cathy.
This was a real gift. It's joyful. Gives me joy to work with you every day.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you and all that you do.
Thank you,
Love to
Cathy.
Rob.
Yes.
Love to Rob.